Welcome back to The Proving Ground, the channel dedicated to those moments under fire where training meets reality, and sometimes reality throws the training manual right out the window. We spend months, years, honing skills on the range, running drills until they become second nature. Marksmanship, procedures, teamwork, it's all designed to build muscle memory, to ensure that when the pressure cooker of combat boils over, instinct takes over. But what happens when your instincts, your performance in training, mark you out not as an asset, but as a liability? What happens when the very men you rely on, the ones whose lives depend on your skill, openly doubt your ability to make the shot when it counts? In the controlled environment of a drill, mistakes are embarrassing. They invite ridicule, extra duty, maybe a harsh word from the NCOs. On the battlefield, mistakes are fatal. There are no do-overs, no second chances. The pressure is immense, and the judgment of your peers, the knowledge that they don't trust you, can be just as crippling as enemy fire. Tonight's story is about that pressure. It's about a soldier, a designated marksman, whose performance during a crucial training exercise was so poor, so off the mark, that he became the butt of jokes, the symbol of incompetence, the man nobody wanted watching their six. His squad leader mocked him. His buddies ribbed him mercilessly. He was, in their eyes, just dead weight. But war has a funny way of testing people. Just hours after that humiliating drill, thrown into the chaos of a real engagement, facing a target that seemed impossible, that same soldier had a chance to prove them all wrong. This is his story. During the drill, they mocked my aim. 2 hours later, I scored the kill of the mission. Before we get into the thick of it, if you believe that proving yourself under fire is the ultimate test, and that these stories of overcoming doubt deserve to be heard, then I need you to secure our position. First, hit that subscribe button and make sure you ring the notification bell. That's your primary way to support the channel and stay updated. Second, hit that like button. It tells the algorithms that this content is valuable. And finally, drop a comment down below. Let us know what country and city you're watching from. It's always inspiring to see our global community assembled. All right, let's head to the range. The laughter was the worst part. It wasn't loud, not outright yelling, but a low, rolling chuckle that spread through the squad came in MRAP like a contagion, bouncing off the cramped steel walls, amplified by the heavy thrum of the diesel engine. It was directed, laser-focused, right at me, Private First Class James Jimmy Callahan, the squad's newly assigned designated marksman, currently staring through the thermal sight of my M110 SAS like it was a crystal ball showing me nothing but my own spectacular failure. We were parked on a dusty, windswept ridge somewhere in Kandahar Province, Afghanistan, late 2009. Below us, maybe 800 meters out across a shimmering expanse of heat-baked sand and scattered rock formations the locals called the Jinn's Playground, sat our target, a rusted, skeletal T-55 tank hulk dragged out there years ago for target practice. This wasn't combat, it was a drill. A snap drill, called by our platoon sergeant, Sergeant First Class Reyes, a man whose patience was as thin as the high-altitude air and whose disappointment radiated like heat off asphalt. The scenario was simple. Simulate spotting a high-value target, the T-55, acquire, range, and put one round, into its center mass within 30 seconds of the contact call. Easy enough, right? For everyone else, maybe. Corporal Davis, the team leader in the front seat, had nailed it with his M4 holographic sight in about 10 seconds, a theoretical kill. Specialist Miller, manning the Crows, 50 cal remote weapon station on the roof, had put a burst dead center even faster. Then it was my turn. The specialist. The guy with the fancy semi-automatic sniper system, the powerful Leupold scope, the Harris bipod, the whole 9 yards. The guy whose entire job was precision, long-range engagement. Contact, target vehicle, 800 meters, bearing 190. Reyes had barked over the intercom. My heart had immediately started hammering against my ribs, a frantic drummer setting a pace my hands couldn't match. 800 meters. It wasn't an impossible shot, not even for the 7. 62mm round. But it was pushing the effective range. especially with the gusting crosswind whipping dust devils across the valley floor. I deployed the bipod on the MR-AP's firing step, settled behind the rifle, my cheek welled feeling awkward, sweaty. I found the T-55 in the scope, the thermal signature blooming white-hot under the relentless Afghan sun. Breathe. Control the breathing. Find the center mass, the turret, easiest target. Okay, now, the wind. It was quartering, left to right, maybe 10-15 miles per hour, kicking up little plumes of sand. My training kicked in, the numbers scrolling through my head like a ticker tape. 800 meters, 15 mph crosswind, M118 LR round, spin drift, hold, 2 mils left, .3 up for range. It felt wrong. Too much hold. Was the wind really that strong? Was the range estimate right? The laser rangefinder built into my scope was giving me a solid 815 meters. Close enough. But the wind, doubt, cold and sharp, pricked at the base of my skull. Reyes's voice crackled again, impatient. Callahan, clock's ticking. Put steel on target. Crap. Okay, just trust the numbers. I took up the slack on the trigger, the two-stage pull feeling heavy, gritty. Crosshairs steady, steady. Now. The rifle bucked against my shoulder, the report surprisingly muted inside the armored vehicle, but the recoil jolted my sight picture. I fought to get back on target, watching the vapor trail, that faint shimmering line of disturbed air, arcing towards the T-55. It looked high, and left, way left. The round impacted not on the turret, not even on the hull, but kicked up a puff of sand and dust a good 10 meters to the left and maybe 5 meters short of the tank hulk. A clean miss. A pathetic miss. Not even close. The silence in the MRAP was suddenly deafening, broken only by the engine's thrum and the hiss of the radio. Then came the first snort of laughter. It was Miller, up in the crow's turret. Whoa there, Callahan. Aiming for the next province over? Then Davis chimed in from the front, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. Easy, Miller. Maybe he was aiming for the shadow. Tough shot, that shadow. More chuckles. Even Ramirez, the quiet driver who usually kept his mouth shut, let out a low groan. My face was burning. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the metal floor. I fumbled to eject the spent casing, my fingers clumsy, dropping the hot brass onto the deck with a clatter that sounded obscenely loud. All right, settle down. Reyes's voice cut through the laughter, but there was no real heat in it. Just a weary, disappointed edge. Callahan, what the hell was that? Windage, Sergeant, I mumbled, avoiding his gaze, pretending to check my scope settings. Misjudged the wind. Misjudged? Reyes scoffed. Son, you weren't even in the same zip code. Looked like you held for a goddamn hurricane. Were you even looking through the scope or just pointing in the general direction? The laughter started again, quieter this time, but somehow meaner. Davis, Reyes continued, show the rookie how it's done. Same target, M4, iron sights. Davis didn't hesitate. He leaned out his window, braced his standard issue M4 carbine on the doorframe, no bipod, no fancy scope, took maybe 3 seconds to aim, and crack. The sharp report echoed. Through my scope, still pointed downrange, I saw it. A tiny puff of dust kicked up right on the T-55's turret near the gun mantlet. Not a center mass hit. Maybe a foot or two off, but at 800 meters, with iron sights, it was a goddamn miracle shot. It was skill. Pure, instinctive veteran skill. The kind I clearly didn't possess. See that, Callahan? Reyes's voice was flat, devoid of praise for Davis, solely focused on my failure. That's called Kentucky windage. That's called knowing your weapon, feeling the conditions, not just staring at numbers in a manual. You got the fancy rifle, kid. You got the expensive glass. But none of it means jack squat if you can't put the round where it needs to go when the pressure's on. Right now, you're just carrying extra weight. Dead weight. Dead weight. The words hit me harder than any physical blow. He hadn't just said I was a bad shot. He'd said I was useless, a burden to the squad. In the brutally pragmatic calculus of combat, there was no worse condemnation. The rest of the drill was a blur of humiliation. We moved positions, ran through bounding Overwatch drills, simulated reacting to IEDs. Every time my role came up, providing precision Overwatch, engaging simulated long-range targets, Reyes would deliberately bypass me. Miller, you take that sniper position with the 50. Davis, get a read on that hilltop, M4 only. I was relegated to pulling rear security, scanning empty desert, essentially benched. My M110, the state-of-the-art sniper system, felt absurdly heavy and useless, a high-tech prop in my own personal play of incompetence. The crew's attitude shifted from mocking humor to a kind of weary, cautious distance. They weren't making jokes anymore. They just weren't talking to me. I was the guy who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, the guy you couldn't rely on when things went sideways. In a tight-knit infantry squad, especially downrange, trust is everything. It's the currency that keeps you alive. And I was bankrupt. We rumbled back towards the relative safety of the small combat outpost as the sun began its slow, merciless descent, painting the sky in lurid shades of orange and purple. The mood in the Cayman was somber. The failed drill had cast a pall, a reminder of the stakes, of how quickly things could go wrong, of how much depended on every single man doing his job, especially the man with the big gun. As we rolled through the HESCO barriers and into the dusty motor pool, Reyes called me over. I braced myself for another chewing out, maybe even news that I was being reassigned, pulled from the line, sent back to Bagram to guard a gate. Callahan, he said, his voice quiet, almost tired. He wasn't looking at me but past me, towards the darkening mountains. That shot today, that wasn't just bad luck. That was a failure of fundamentals. You're overthinking it. You're letting the gear psych you out. You need trigger time, real trigger time, not just banging away at steel. He sighed. Listen, Intel says there's been chatter. Possible enemy movement tonight. Maybe trying to stage RPG teams along Route Predator. By the main supply route we were tasked with keeping open. For the morning resupply convoy, we're sending out a 2-vehicle recon patrol after dark. Just a quick loop, thermal scan, see if we can spot anything before it happens. My heart gave a hopeful leap, a real mission, a chance to redeem myself. You're not going, Reyes said flatly, dashing the hope instantly. You're staying here. On the wire. You'll pull perimeter guard tonight, Tower 3, all night. He finally looked at me, his eyes hard. Maybe 8 hours of staring into the dark will help you learn to actually see something, and maybe keep you from getting somebody killed. He turned and walked away towards the talk, leaving me standing there in the swirling dust, the heavy rifle feeling like an anchor, the weight of his distrust pressing down on me. I wasn't just benched, I was sidelined. I was the rookie gunner, banished to the lonely watchtower, while the real soldiers went out to do the real work. The mockery hadn't stopped. It had just become official policy. Tower 3 wasn't just a guard post. It was exile made manifest. A rickety, windswept cage of HESCO barriers and sandbags perched precariously on the northwest corner of the COP's perimeter wire, overlooking a vast empty stretch of moon-dusted wadi and the dark, forbidding mouth of Route Predator as it snaked westward into the mountains. Climbing the ladder felt like ascending a scaffold, each rung confirming my status as the condemned. Inside, it was cramped, barely large enough for one man in his gear, smelling faintly of stale sweat, urine, and the lingering cordite from the tower's mounted M240 machine gun. The wind howled through the gaps in the sandbags, carrying the fine talcum powder dust that got into everything. Your eyes, your weapon, your soul. This was my prison for the next 8 hours, my throne of incompetence. Sergeant Reyes hadn't just benched me. He'd put me in solitary confinement with my own failure as the warden. I leaned my M110 against the rough timber frame, the rifle suddenly feeling alien, heavy, accusatory. This beautiful piece of precision engineering, capable of reaching out and touching the enemy at nearly a kilometer. And in my hands, it couldn't hit a T-55 silhouette broadside at 800 meters. The laughter from the MRAP echoed in the confines of the small tower, a phantom chorus mocking my every move. Dead weight. Reyes's words hammered at me. He hadn't just doubted my skill. He'd questioned my very worth to the unit, to the mission, to the men whose lives depended on mutual trust and competence. And the worst part, he was right. I had failed. I had choked. The windage calculation, had it really been that far off? Or had I flinched? Had I jerked the trigger at the last second, anticipating the recoil, sending the round wild? The memory was a hot, shameful blur. All I knew was the result. A clean miss, followed by derision, followed by exile. I slumped onto the ammo can that served as a stool, pulling my fleece cap lower, trying to block out the wind and the self-recrimination. The sun had dipped below the western peaks, painting the sky in violent streaks of purple and blood orange, colors that seemed too beautiful, too dramatic for the ugly reality of this place. Down in the motor pool, I could hear the familiar cough and roar of the Cayman engine starting up. The recon patrol, Davis, Miller, Ramirez, the men who had laughed, they were heading out, doing the real job, hunting the enemy. While I sat up here, banished, watching an empty patch of desert, tasked with doing nothing more than not screwing up, I heard their radio checks, clipped and professional, then the grinding sound of the heavy MRAPs rolling out the gate, their headlights cutting brief, yellow swaths through the gathering dusk before vanishing around the first bend in the wadi. The silence they left behind felt immense, profound. The low thrum of the cops' generators, the distant bark of village dogs, the incessant whisper of the wind, these sounds only amplified the loneliness, the isolation. I was adrift. I picked up the thermal sight unit for the M240, scanning my sector out of habit, the world turning into a ghostly landscape of black-hot and white-cold shapes. Rocks retained the day's heat, glowing faintly. The sand was already cold, dark. Far out, maybe 2 kilometers, a small herd of desert goats huddled together, indistinct blobs of warmth. Nothing else moved. Just the wind and the dust and the crushing weight of my own inadequacy. Hours crawled by, measured in the slow sweep of the stars across the ink-black sky and the changing shifts of the other perimeter guards. Their brief radio calls the only reminder that I wasn't entirely alone on this godforsaken rock. The initial sting of humiliation began to fade, replaced by a dull, aching exhaustion and the deep, gnawing cold that settled into your bones as the desert temperature plummeted. I forced myself to stay alert, fueled by lukewarm coffee from my thermos and a stubborn, flickering ember of pride. Reyes might think I was useless, but I wouldn't be useless. I would do this job, this shitty, boring punishment detail, better than anyone else. I would be the best damn watchman on this wire. My M110 wasn't just deadweight. It was a tool, a powerful tool. I attached my AN-PVS-27 night vision scope, a massive, heavy piece of optical engineering that turned the night into a grainy, luminous green world. Then I switched back to the thermal, sweeping, searching, analyzing every heat signature. That rock formation, had it looked like that an hour ago? That shadow in the wadi, was it moving? My mind played tricks, paranoia fueled by fatigue and the desperate need to find something, anything, to prove I wasn't blind, wasn't incompetent. I saw a flicker of heat near the base of the far ridge. My heart leaped, only to resolve into a small desert fox darting between rocks. I almost called it in. Movement, unknown thermal signature, grid. I caught myself, fingers hovering over the radio handset. Idiot. Reyes would crucify me, calling in a fox. I could hear the laughter already. Callahan seeing things again. The fear of making another mistake, of inviting more ridicule, was a physical constraint, tightening my throat, making my hand tremble. Just stay out of the way. But Reyes had also said, maybe 8 hours of staring into the dark will help you learn to actually see something. Was that just a dismissal, or was it a challenge? Was he daring me to overcome my failure, to sharpen my focus, to earn my place back? Or was he just parking the broken equipment where it couldn't cause any more damage? I didn't know. But I chose to believe it was a challenge. I forced down the paranoia, the jumpiness. I focused on the fundamentals. Breathing, trigger control, even though I wasn't shooting. Scanning methodology. I used the M110's powerful optics not just to look, but to observe. I studied the terrain, memorizing the heat signatures of rocks, the patterns of the sparse vegetation, the way the wind moved the sand. I learned the rhythm of the night. Around 0200, the moon dipped below the mountains, plunging the landscape into an even deeper, more profound darkness. The generators kicked off for their scheduled maintenance cycle, and the sudden absolute silence was jarring. Only the wind remained, whispering secrets across the sand. It was in this silence, this utter blackness, that I saw it. Not a flicker, not a shadow, a pattern. Through the thermal scope, zoomed to maximum magnification, focused on the dark ribbon of route predator, maybe 3-4 kilometers to the west, far beyond the effective range of my rifle but well within the reach of my optics. It was a string of tiny pinprick heat signatures, perfectly spaced, moving slowly, steadily, eastward towards the COP. They were too small for vehicles, too evenly spaced for animals, too deliberate. My blood went cold. Headlights? No, they weren't bright enough. Too intermittent. Campfires? No, they were moving. Men. A column of men walking single file, using the darkness, probably maintaining intervals, moving with discipline. How many? 10? 20? More? Impossible to tell for sure through the shimmering thermal distortion at that range, but it was contact. Real contact. And they were heading our way, using the dead ground of the Wadi system, potentially bypassing the route the recon patrol was supposed to be checking. My first instinct was pure, unadulterated relief. I saw something. I wasn't useless. My hand immediately went to the radio handset. Viper TOC, Viper 3, contact multiple personnel, grid. I stopped myself. My finger froze on the transmit button. Wait. Think. Don't be the panicked rookie. What did I actually see? Pinpricks of heat. Moving. 4 kilometers out. Could be anything. Could be smugglers. Could be Kuchi nomads, known to travel at night. Could be nothing. If I called this in based on nothing more than faint thermal blobs at extreme range, Reyes would tear me apart. Callahan seeing ghosts again. Wasting comms time. Crying wolf. The humiliation of the morning washed over me again, cold and paralyzing. The fear of being wrong, of being mocked, was a physical weight. Just stay out of the way. But what if I was right? What if this was the enemy staging party Reyes had mentioned? What if they were moving into position now, under cover of darkness, to set up RPGs or IEDs for the morning convoy? The recon patrol? Where were they? Their route was supposed to take them further west, then loop back. Were they even in a position to see this? Could I even reach them on the radio from here? Doubt warred with duty. The fear of ridicule fought the fear of negligence. And then I remembered Reyes's other words. That 88. That should have been your kill. He hadn't just been angry about my miss. He'd been angry about the consequences. Casey's crew, dead, because of hesitation, because of uncertainty. If I stayed silent now, if I waited for more confirmation, if I let my fear of being mocked override my responsibility, and those heat signatures were hostile, who would pay the price? The convoy crews tomorrow morning? The recon patrol, stumbling into them in the dark? My job wasn't just to see, it was to report. Screw the mockery. Screw the doubt. I took a deep breath, keyed the handset, and made the call. My voice low, professional, trying desperately to keep the tremor out. Viper TOC, Viper 3, SITREP. Have possible contact. Thermal observation only. Estimate 20+ personnel. Dismounted. Moving east along axis south of route predator. Grid reference Papa Tango 497-823. Repeat. Possible dismounted enemy element 20+. Grid Papa Tango 497-823. Moving east. Confidence level. Low to moderate. Request confirmation from other OPs or ISR if available. Over. The reply from the TOC was predictably skeptical, laced with weariness. Roger, Viper 3. Possible. 20+. Dismounts. Stand by. I could picture the scene. The NCO on duty rolling his eyes, making a note on the log, probably already dismissing it as Callahan seeing heat rocks again. But I had done my duty. I had made the call. Now, all I could do was watch. I stayed glued to the thermal sight, tracking the slow, inexorable movement of the heat signatures. They kept coming, maintaining their spacing, moving with obvious discipline. They weren't nomads. They weren't smugglers. They were soldiers, and they were getting closer. 3 kilometers now. Still too far for my rifle, but getting within range of something else. And then I saw it. The lead element. It wasn't just men. There was a larger heat signature amongst them, low to the ground, moving at the same pace. Too small for a truck. Too flat. It had tracks. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't just infantry. They had support. A DSHK heavy machine gun on a tracked carriage, an anti-aircraft gun repurposed for ground fire, or something worse, something with a bigger cannon. I keyed the mic again, my voice urgent now. Viper Talk, Viper 3, update, confirming contact is hostile. Lead element includes tracked vehicle, possible heavy weapon. Repeat, tracked vehicle with lead element. They are continuing east, approaching phase line Alpha. Over. This time, the response from the TOC was different. The skepticism was gone, replaced by sudden, sharp alarm. Solid copy. 3. Tracked vehicle. Hostile confirmed. I heard muffled shouting in the background, the unmistakable sound of an operations center suddenly kicking into high gear. All stations, stand to. Stand to. Viper 3 reports confirmed hostile element. 20-plus dismounts with tracked heavy weapon. Grid Papa Tango 499er825. Moving east. Eagle 6. Eagle 6. Wake the hell up. The base alarm suddenly erupted. A wailing electronic banshee cry that ripped through the night, followed by the frantic thump 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 of boots running on gravel. The clatter of weapons being charged. My low-confidence report, the one I had almost been too afraid to make, had just thrown the entire COP into chaos. And somewhere out there in the darkness, the recon patrol was still unaware, driving deeper into the potential kill zone. The enemy wasn't just staging for tomorrow. They were moving tonight, and they were heading straight for us. My lonely watchtower wasn't exile anymore. It was suddenly the front line. The wail of the COP alarm was a physical jolt, cutting through the cold night air and setting my teeth on edge. Down below, the small compound erupted in controlled chaos. Floodlights snapped on, bathing the perimeter wire in harsh yellow glare. Figures sprinted across the gravel, infantrymen pulling on body armor, scrambling towards their fighting positions, machine gunners hauling belts of ammo towards the bunkers. The sounds were sharp, urgent. The metallic clack of charging handles, the sharp bark of NCOs yelling orders, the sudden, deeper roar as someone fired up the engine of the backup came and MRAP kept on standby. My lonely watchtower, moments before a symbol of my exile, was now the nerve center, the eye of the storm. I was the only one with eyes on the approaching enemy. Viper 3, Viper Actual. Lieutenant Harrison's voice, the platoon leader who was technically in charge while Reyes was out on patrol, crackled in my ear, sharp with adrenaline, but surprisingly calm. Maintain observation. Give me constant updates. Size, speed, direction, composition. Everything you see, Callahan. Talk to me. Callahan. He used my name. Not Viper 3, not Rookie. Callahan. It was a small thing, but it sent a jolt of something, not quite confidence but responsibility, through me. I wasn't just a pair of eyes anymore. I was the platoon sensor, their early warning system. Roger, Actual, I replied, forcing my voice to remain level, fighting the tremor that wanted to creep in. Target element continues east, south of Predator. Estimate, 3 kilometers now. Speed, steady walking pace. Composition remains approx 20-plus dismounts. Lead element includes 1 tracked vehicle. Still appears to be heavy weapon platform. Cannot confirm type. Over. I kept the thermal sight glued to the approaching column, my thumb hovering over the transmit button. The pinpricks of heat were resolving slightly as they got closer, becoming less like blobs, more like distinct human shapes moving with purpose. The tracked vehicle. It was still just a low, oblong heat signature. Maybe a ZSU-23 for Shilka, stripped of its radar. Possible. Deadly against ground troops and even light armor. Any change in formation, Callahan? Harrison pressed. Negative actual, still single file, maintaining dispersion. Looks professional, disciplined. That was the chilling part. They weren't a ragtag group of insurgents. They moved like trained soldiers, which meant they were likely better equipped, better led, and far more dangerous. My mind raced. What was their objective? A probing attack on the cop? Setting up a complex ambush for the convoy? Or were they hunting something else? The recon patrol. My blood went cold again. Davis, Miller, Ramirez. They were out there, somewhere to the west, driving blind, maybe heading straight towards this approaching force. Actual, request status update on Viper recon element. I transmitted, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. Do they know about this contact? There was a pause, filled with the frantic cross-chatter of the platoon net as Harrison tried to raise Reyes's patrol. Static. Nothing. Negative contact with Viper Recon 3. Harrison finally came back, his voice tight. Their comms might be masked by the terrain, or something else. Something else. Jamming. Or had they already run into trouble? The possibilities were terrifying. My priority shifted. Finding the enemy was one thing, warning my buddies was another. But I couldn't reach them. All I could do was watch, report, and pray they saw something, heard something, before it was too late. The enemy column kept coming. 2.5 kilometers now. They were following a dry wadi bed, using the micro-terrain for cover, invisible to anyone on the ground level of the COP. Only my elevated position in Tower 3 gave me the angle. Actual. Target element approaching phase line Bravo, I reported, referencing a pre-plotted line on our maps. Estimate they will be within effective mortar range in 5 mics. Copy, 3, Harrison acknowledged. Mortars standing by. Fire mission is prepped, but I need positive ID on that vehicle before I drop rounds. Could be ANA, could be civilians. Civilians? Out here, at 02:30 in the morning, moving in tactical formation with a tracked weapon? Highly unlikely, but Harrison was following the rules of engagement. The burden of avoiding collateral damage heavy on his young shoulders. He needed certainty, and I couldn't give it to him. Not yet. The frustration was maddening. I had the world's most advanced infantry sniper system in my hands, capable of incredible precision, but the target was still too far, too indistinct in the thermal haze. I strained my eyes, tweaking the focus, adjusting the contrast, trying to pull details from the heat signatures. The men, they carried rifles, that much was clear. AKs probably, maybe an RPG or two slung on their backs, hard to tell. The tracked vehicle, it remained stubbornly enigmatic, low profile, boxy. The heat signature was concentrated near the rear, the engine, and a fainter, warmer blob near the front, the weapon system, or just the crew compartment. I zoomed in, max digital zoom, the image turning grainy, pixelated. I held my breath, trying to steady the rifle against the sandbagged ledge. Come on, show me something. And then, for a split second, the lead figure, the one walking point just ahead of the tracked vehicle, turned slightly, looking back towards his column, and in that instant the thermal image flared. A bright, distinct, circular heat source on his head. Not a turban, not a bare head, a helmet, a Soviet-style steel helmet, and slung across his back, the unmistakable cold, double-curved signature of an RPG-7 launcher. Hostile, no doubt. No question. Actual Viper 3! My voice was sharp, certain. Confirming hostile intent. Lead element equipped with RPGs, wearing helmets. Recommend immediate engagement. Over. The change in the TOC was palpable, even over the radio. The weary skepticism vanished, replaced by the cold, hard urgency of imminent combat. Solid copy, 3, Harrison snapped. Henderson, mortars. Fire mission Alpha, he. Proximity fuse, fire for effect. Fire mission Alpha, Henderson's voice echoed, followed seconds later by the deep, resonant thump-thump-thump of the 81mm mortars leaving their tubes from the pit behind the TOC. High explosive death was on its way, but it would take 30, maybe 40 seconds to arrive. And the enemy was still moving, still closing the distance. 2 kilometers now. Callahan? Harrison's voice again, lower this time, focused. That tracked vehicle, I need to know what it is, before those mortars land. Can you give me anything? I swung the M110 back to the lead element, my hands surprisingly steady now. The adrenaline had burned away the fear, leaving only a cold, sharp focus. The vehicle. It was slightly clearer now, maybe 800 meters out. Still blobby in the thermal, but the shape. Low, flat, turretless. Maybe a troop carrier. An MTLB. Possible. But the heat signature at the front. It looked like a gun tube. Short. Stubby. Not a machine gun. Bigger. A cannon. My blood ran cold again. A Stuggy? No. Too small. Wrong shape. What the hell is that? It looked almost homemade. Like a cannon mounted on a simple, tracked chassis. Could it be an Su-76? An ancient World War II era Soviet assault gun? Unlikely, but not impossible in this part of the world, where old hardware never truly died. Or maybe something worse, something improvised. A heavy recoilless rifle mounted on tracks? Whatever it was, it had a direct fire cannon, and it was leading an infantry assault. This wasn't just a staging party. This was an attack. They were coming for the cop. Actual, I yelled into the mic. Urgency overriding protocol. Vehicle appears to be tracked assault gun. Repeat, assault gun. Possible Su-76 or similar. Direct fire capability. Recommend immediate direct fire engagement if possible. Assault gun? Harrison sounded stunned. Are you sure, Callahan? Affirmative, actual. Low profile, tracked. Forward-mounted cannon. Hostile. My confirmation coincided perfectly with the arrival of the first mortar rounds. Far down the valley, a series of brilliant white flashes blossomed in the darkness, followed seconds later by the rolling thunder of the detonations. Hoomp! 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 The proximity fuses worked, bursting in the air above the column, showering the wadi floor with shrapnel. I saw thermal signatures scatter, men diving for cover behind rocks, the column instantly dissolving into chaos. But the vehicle, it kept coming. It hadn't even flinched. The mortar rounds, designed for anti-personnel work, hadn't phased it. It just pushed forward, emerging from the smoke and dust of the mortar barrage, its stubby cannon already traversing, searching for the source of the attack. It knew where we were now, and it was coming to kill us. Actual, mortars ineffective on vehicle. Vehicle is buttoned up, still advancing. Recommend direct fire, I pleaded. Negative direct fire assets in range 3, Harrison shot back, frustration clear in his voice. Miller's 50 cal can't reach that far, and Tau missile is down for maintenance. He was right. The vehicle was still well over 500 meters out, beyond the effective range of the 50 cal, and maybe even the aging Tau missile launcher mounted on another Humvee. We had nothing that could reliably kill it at this distance. Nothing except me, my M110, the M118 LR7, 62mm round. Could it even scratch an assault gun, even an old one? The frontal armor on an Su-76 was maybe 35mm sloped. My round could penetrate maybe 10 meters at 1,000 meters. Useless. Hitting the tracks? Possible, but incredibly difficult at this range, on a moving target, in the dark, through thermals. Optics? Maybe. A lucky shot might crack a viewport or damage a sight. It was a pathetic chance. A desperate, almost suicidal thought. But it was the only chance. The assault gun was the linchpin. If it got within range of the cop, its cannon could rip through our sandbagged defenses, suppress our machine guns, maybe even punch through the thin skin of the Tosi bunker. It had to be stopped. Now. Before it got any closer. I didn't wait for orders. I didn't ask permission. This wasn't the drill. This wasn't the T-55 Hulk. This was real. My hands moved with a speed and precision that felt alien, disconnected from the trembling rookie who had missed that shot just hours before. Range, 550 meters, laser confirmed. Wind, steady now, maybe 5 map, 9 o'clock. Target, the assault gun. Aim point. Think, Callahan, think. Not center mass, not the armor. Where is it vulnerable? Optics, driver's viewport, commander's hatch. Or the gun itself? That short, stubby barrel, maybe, just maybe. I laid the crosshairs, not on the hull, but on the faintly glowing heat signature of the cannon tube itself, right near the base where it emerged from the mantlet. A 1 in a million shot. A Hollywood shot. Utterly insane. But it was the only target that offered even a chance of a mission kill. Breathe. Hold. Squeeze. The M110 roared, the recoil slamming into my shoulder, harder this time, fueled by desperation. I fought to get back on target, my eye straining through the thermal sight, watching the tiny, fleeting spark of the tracer as it raced across the impossible distance. The recoil punched my shoulder, a familiar, solid thump, but my focus was absolute, unbreakable. My cheek was welded to the stock, my eye fused to the rubber eyepiece of the thermal sight, my entire universe compressed into that grainy green and black circle. The muzzle flash momentarily whited out the image, then the smoke. Thick, white propellant smoke billowing from the muzzle brake, obscuring the target for a precious second, 2 seconds, an eternity. My mind wasn't calculating trajectory anymore. It was screaming a silent prayer. Hit. Please God, just hit something. Don't be another miss. Don't be the joke. The smoke cleared. Downrange, 550 meters away, almost a full mile, the heat signatures were still there. The scattered infantry, hugging the pathetic cover offered by the shallow wadi bed, momentarily stunned by the ineffective mortar barrage but undoubtedly recovering, and the assault gun. It was still moving, crawling forward at a steady, implacable pace, seemingly untouched, unfazed by the supersonic gnat I had just swatted at it. My heart plummeted. A miss. A clean, total, humiliating miss. I hadn't even scared them. The 1 in a million shot had failed. And I had just wasted another precious second, another round, confirmed my incompetence, and probably just pissed off a tank that was now definitely going to kill us all. Status, Callahan? Lieutenant Harrison's voice was tight in my ear, demanding, needing information now. Did you get him? Negative, actual, I stammered, the shame returning, cold and sickening. No effect on target, repeat, no effect. Vehicle is still advancing. I could almost hear the collective groan in the talk. Callahan missed again. Shocker. I started to pull my eye away from the scope, ready to receive the inevitable blistering reprimand, ready to be told to hand the rifle over to someone, anyone else. But something made me hesitate. Something was wrong. The assault gun was still moving, but it wasn't moving right. Its movement wasn't the steady, purposeful advance from before. It was jerky, erratic. It would surge forward a few meters, then slow, then veer slightly to the left, then correct. Like the driver was drunk, or wounded, or fighting his controls. And the gun? The stubby cannon. It wasn't traversing smoothly anymore. It was twitching, making small, spasmodic adjustments left and right, up and down as if the gunner couldn't get a stable sight picture. Had I hit something? Not a killing blow, obviously. But had that tiny 175-grain bullet, traveling at over 500 feet per second, impacted with enough force in just the right spot to jar something, to damage an optic, rattle the gunner, whelm the driver through his vision slit? It seemed impossible. A 7.62mm round against even light armor at that range. The energy dump should have been negligible, a mere ping, unless I hadn't hit the armor, unless I had hit the gun tube itself. I zoomed in again, max magnification, ignoring the pixelation, straining my eyes. The heat signature of the cannon was still there, glowing faintly warmer than the surrounding chassis. But was it bent? Was there a dent? Impossible to tell for sure through the shimmering thermal waves and the distance. But the behavior, the erratic movement, the twitching gun, that was real. That was data. Actual, I transmitted again, my voice low, intense, trying to convey the uncertainty mixed with dawning hope. Correction, target vehicle is affected. Repeat, vehicle is affected. Movement is erratic. Gun traverse appears unsteady. Possible damage to optics or gun controls. Cannot confirm penetration, but he is not operating normally. Over. This time, the silence from the TOC felt different. Not skeptical, but calculating. Harrison was processing the new information. An enemy assault gun, still moving, still potentially lethal, but wounded. What did that change? Copy. 3. Harrison came back, his voice thoughtful. Possible damage. Okay. Henderson. He switched to the mortar net. Adjust fire. Target reference 3 Alpha 9 or adjust. Shift 100 meters east. Repeat last fire mission. Get rounds on that vehicle now. The mortars thumped again, sending another salvo of HE arcing towards the crippled assault gun. While they were in the air, Harrison came back to me. Callahan, you got another shot. Did I? The first shot had been a miracle, a prayer answered against impossible odds. Could I do it again? Aiming for the same tiny spot, compensating for the now moving, albeit erratically, target. The probability was effectively 0, and yet the alternative was letting that thing continue its drunken lurch towards the cop, hoping the mortars would get lucky. Mortars were area weapons. Hitting a moving, armored target, even a wounded one, was a long shot. My rifle was precision. Even if I couldn't kill it, maybe I could blind it further. Maybe I could hit the tracks, immobilize it completely. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. A stupid cliche from some high school coach echoed in my head. Screw it. Affirmative. Actual, I said. My voice calmer now, the decision made. Reloading, standing by. I worked the bolt, ejecting the spent casing, chambering a fresh M118LR round, the familiar smooth snick-snick of the action a small, comforting ritual in the chaos. My hands weren't shaking anymore. The hours spent staring into the dark, the focus required had burned away the panic, leaving a cold, clear residue of purpose. I found the target again in the scope. It was still moving, maybe 400 meters out now, zigzagging slightly, its gun twitching like a broken finger. The first mortar rounds impacted around it, close but not direct hits, kicking up plumes of dirt and smoke, momentarily obscuring the target. Mortars are bracketing, no direct hits, I reported. Vehicle still moving. Hit him, Callahan, Harrison ordered, his voice flat. Whatever you hit last time, hit it again. I settled back behind the rifle, my cheek welled firm now, practiced, breathing slow. Find the rhythm. The target reappeared through the smoke. Gun tube, twitching, moving. Lead, 0.5 mils left. Hold elevation. Wind still steady. Breathe out. Hold. Squeeze. The M110 roared again. Recoil. Smoke. Back on target. Watching the tracer. Watching. Spark. Another hit. Almost the exact same spot. A tiny, brilliant flash right on the cannon tube, near the mantlet. It was impossible. Twice? Had I actually hit it twice? The assault gun lurched violently, slewing hard to the left, throwing up a huge cloud of snow and dirt as the driver clearly lost control. It slid sideways, then stopped, its right track half buried in the soft shoulder of the wadi bed. It was stuck, immobilized, and the gun was now pointing harmlessly off into the western hills, its traverse mechanism likely shattered by the second impact, or the crew finally disabled. It wasn't burning. It wasn't dead, but it was out of the fight. A mission kill, achieved by 2 wasted rifle rounds at over 400 meters. Target! I screamed into the mic, my voice hoarse with a mixture of triumph and sheer disbelieving shock. Target vehicle immobilized. Repeat. Vehicle is immobilized. Gun is disabled. Facing west. He is out of the fight. The reaction in the TOC was immediate, electric. Shouts, cheers, Harrison's voice tight with relief. Solid copy 3, excellent shooting. Henderson, cease fire mission. Shift targets. Engage enemy infantry. Grid Papa Tango 500826. Fire for effect. The mortars thumped again, this time walking their barrage down the wadi, chasing the scattered infantry who had lost their armored support. Down below, the cops' own machine guns opened up, the heavy thump-thump-thump of the M2 50 cals joining the faster chatter of the 240s, adding their weight to the suppression. I kept my scope on the immobilized assault gun, watching for any sign of life, Any hatch opening, any secondary explosion. Nothing. Just the dark, silent shape, sitting crookedly in the dirt. A monument to what? My luck? My skill? My sheer, stubborn stupidity in taking a shot that the book clearly said was impossible? Maybe all three. The immediate threat was gone. The linchpin of the enemy attack was broken. But the infantry, they were still out there. Maybe 30, 40 men, armed with AKs, RPGs, probably grenades. They were scattered, disorganized by the mortar fire and the loss of their support vehicle. But they were still trained soldiers. And they were still only about a kilometer from the wire. Callahan. Harrison's voice again. Calm now, professional. Good work on the vehicle. Excellent work. Now give me targets, infantry. Prioritize RPG teams. Leaders if you can spot them. Range is still extreme, but make them keep their heads down. You are our primary overwatch now. Keep talking to me. Our primary overwatch. Me, the rookie gunner. The dead weight. I took another breath, chambered another round. The mockery from the drill felt like a lifetime ago, something that happened to a different person. That person had missed a stationary T-55 at 800 meters. This person had just mission killed an assault gun at 500 meters with 2 miracle shots. Maybe Reyes had been right after all. Maybe staring into the dark had taught me how to see. I scanned the wadi, the thermal sight painting the chaotic scene in stark contrasts. I saw movement, figures darting between rocks, trying to regroup, trying to push forward despite the mortar fire. I saw the distinctive heat signature of an RPG-7 on a man's back as he crawled towards a slightly elevated firing position. Actual Viper 3, I said, my voice steady now, devoid of panic, devoid of doubt. Just cold. Professional. Have target. Enemy RPG gunner. Crawling towards rock outcrop. Grid Papa Tango 501827. Range estimate 1100 meters. Engaging. I settled the crosshairs. Windage. Hold. Breathe. Squeeze. The M110 barked again. This time I didn't watch the tracer. I watched the target. A tiny flicker of heat. Vanished. Target down, I reported, my voice flat. Scanning for next. The kill of the mission wasn't just the assault gun. It was every shot I took after that, every enemy soldier I suppressed, every RPG I stopped before it could be fired. The kill of the mission wasn't just one shot. It was me, finally, doing my job. The rookie gunner, finding his aim in the dark. The next hour was a blur of controlled, lethal efficiency. From my perch in Tower 3, I wasn't just a guard anymore. I was the eye of God overlooking the battlefield, the designated marksman finally living up to the name. The initial chaos of the contact faded, replaced by the grim, methodical business of killing. Guided by my calls, Henderson walked the mortar barrage up and down the wadi, scattering the enemy infantry, preventing them from massing or organizing a coherent counterattack. On the COP perimeter, the heavy machine guns kept up a steady, suppressive fire, their tracers reaching out into the darkness, discouraging any direct assault on the wire. And me? I hunted. With Lieutenant Harrison calling adjustments and confirming targets, I moved from one fleeting heat signature to the next. RPG gunner trying to crawl into a firing position. Crack. Target down. Potential squad leader directing movement from behind a rock. Crack. Target down. Machine gun team setting up on a small rise. Crack. Suppressed. Forced to relocate. I wasn't making impossible Hollywood shots anymore. These were closer now. 800, 900 meters. Well within the M110's lethal envelope. I wasn't aiming for the gun tube or praying for ricochets. I was aiming for center mass, just like Reyes had drilled into us, but this time there was no hesitation, no doubt. The windage holds felt instinctive now, the trigger squeeze smooth, the follow-through automatic. I wasn't thinking, I was shooting. The hours spent staring into the dark, learning the nuances of the thermal sight, memorizing the terrain, combined with the adrenaline-fueled clarity of real combat, had forged something new in me. The book was still there, the knowledge of ballistics and windage, but it was now fused with something else. Instinct, focus, a cold, hard certainty. I wasn't the rookie anymore. I was a gunner. The enemy attack dissolved. Faced with accurate mortar fire, relentless machine gun suppression, and the unnerving, invisible hand of a sniper picking off their key personnel from extreme range, their will broke. I watched through the thermal sight as the scattered heat signatures began to pull back, first individually, then in small groups, retreating westward, back into the dark maze of wadis from which they had emerged. They left behind perhaps a dozen motionless forms, dark cooling patches on the cold sand, and the silent, crippled hulk of their assault gun, a stark monument to their failed attack. "Actual, Viper 3, I reported, my voice hoarse, my shoulder aching from the M110's repeated recoil. "Enemy element appears to be breaking contact. Multiple signatures withdrawing west. Recommend maintaining mortar illumination and intermittent harassing fire on withdrawal route." "Solid copy, 3, Harrison replied, the relief immense in his voice. "Good work, Callahan. Damn good work. Henderson, shift to illumination rounds. Phase line Charlie. All stations, maintain 50% alert. Watch your sectors. They might try again." The immediate threat was over. The COP was secure, and the sun, miraculously, was beginning to stain the eastern sky with the first faint hints of gray. Dawn was coming. The longest night of my life was ending. As the first rays of sunlight pierced the dusty gloom, illuminating the wadi in stark relief, the sound of engines returned. Not enemy engines. Ours. The 2 Cayman MRAPs of the recon patrol, Viper Recon, rolled slowly, cautiously, up Route Predator, appearing out of the western haze like ghosts returning from the underworld. They stopped near the immobilized assault gun, tiny figures dismounting, inspecting the kill, their radio chatter a mix of awe and disbelief. Then they continued on, rolling towards the COP gate. I watched them arrive, watched Davis, Miller, and Ramirez climb out, their faces pale and drawn. They hadn't run into the main enemy force. My warning, relayed through Harrison, had allowed them to hold back. Alerted, but they had clearly heard the battle raging just kilometers away, heard the mortars, heard the machine guns, heard the impossible reports of a single designated marksman holding off an armored assault. They looked different. They looked at the bullet-scarred walls of the COP, at the smoking mortar pit, at the exhausted but alive infantrymen cleaning their weapons. Then they looked up, towards Tower 3, towards me. Miller raised a hand, not in mockery, but in a simple, tired wave. Davis just nodded, a look of grudging respect on his face. Ramirez actually smiled. The laughter from the morning drill felt like a distant, irrelevant echo now, something that had happened in another lifetime, to another person. Sergeant Reyes was the last one out of the lead Cayman. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week, his face caked in dust, his eyes hard as nails. He didn't wave, he didn't smile. He just walked straight towards the base of my tower, ignoring the debrief already starting near the talk. He looked up, shielding his eyes against the rising sun. "Callahan!" he yelled, his voice carrying easily in the quiet morning air. "Get your ass down here. Grab your rifle. We got an AAR to write." I slung the M110, the familiar weight now feeling less like a burden, more like an extension of myself. I climbed down the ladder, my legs shaky with exhaustion, my body aching, but my mind clear. I dropped the last few feet to the ground, landing in front of him. He looked me up and down, his eyes taking in my sweat-stained uniform, the dark circles under my eyes, the faint tremor still in my hands. He saw the empty brass casings littering the floor of the tower above. He knew. He didn't need the official report. "Heard you had a busy night, rookie," he said, his voice gruff, but the insult lacked its usual sting. It almost sounded proud. "Something like that, Sergeant," I replied, my voice hoarse. He looked towards the distant smoking wreck of the assault gun, then back at me. "Also heard," he said, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips, "that you were aiming for the dirt again." I felt my face flush, bracing for the inevitable chewing out, the reminder of my wasted ammo obsession. But it didn't come. Reyes just shook his head, that small smile lingering. "Next time, Callahan." he said, clapping me hard on the shoulder, the impact echoing the recoil of the rifle. Just hit the damn tank, okay? Save us all the drama. He turned and walked towards the talk, leaving me standing there in the morning sun, the weight of the M110 suddenly feeling right. The mockery was forgotten. The doubt was erased. The kill was confirmed. And the rookie gunner was finally home.